Welcome back to Double Take Tech, and today we're talking about the Alienware AW2725DF, and this is a settings guide. Before I go into the settings, however, I do want to talk about why we have bought this panel in particular. Since we started the channel, we've always strived to buy the best gaming monitor out there, whenever we've had the budget. We started off with the Odyssey G7, still a brilliant panel, but things have moved on since then. We then bought the Ultrawide Alienware 3423DF, which is still a brilliant monitor and is still my daily driver, right here behind me and right next to the 2725DF. When we had that ultrawide, we spoke about yearning for a 27-inch OLED gaming monitor, and then the market was flooded with both Samsung's QD-OLED and LG's W-OLED in a flat 27-inch format, which we feel is the perfect format for gaming and most use cases. In terms of why we feel QD-OLED is better than W-OLED, well, this could be based on opinion. There are certainly some use cases where W-OLED is better, but for most use cases, and certainly our use case, we feel QD-OLED is better. It gives you better color accuracy, and there seems to be a general consensus that the risk of burn-in is less on QD-OLED. It's not an established fact yet. The panels have only entered the market recently and it needs a bit more research. Now, if you're in a brighter room, then the W-OLEDs might be better for you because they can be brighter screens. But for everything else, we think the QD-OLEDs are better. Now, amongst the QD-OLEDs, the original ultrawides were brilliant, but this AW2725DF is a 360Hz gloss flat 1440p with near instantaneous response time, faster than even the previous ultrawides, and it's one of the cheapest OLED panels you can buy right now. So amongst the QD-OLEDs that are available in the market, there is the Samsung G6, there is the MSI MPG 271QRX, and there's this Alienware. There's also confirmed releases coming from Philips, Asus, ASRock, and even AOC. Some of them might be cheaper than this Alienware, but the Alienware is the cheapest at exactly £700 right now. And at that price, you get all the QD-OLED 27-inch 360Hz goodness that comes with this panel, but you also get Alienware and Dell's established 3-year warranty burn-in. And the panel design itself, in terms of the ergonomics and the adjustability and the size of the stand, it's just the best one. Samsung G6 is silver, so may not sit with everybody's setup. It certainly doesn't sit good with our setup, although it's a beautiful panel. And the MSI is the most expensive, which I think is because of this KVM switch they have, a USB KVM switch that they've incorporated in the panel. But it's a bit more bulky and the stand's a bit more bigger and just doesn't warrant spending an extra 100 quid for. At the end of it though, there's not much setting them apart. One thing is for certain, whichever QD-OLED 27-inch you buy, when you use it and you're able to output 360Hz, you will notice the difference. It is a absolutely beautiful panel. I loved my Alienware AW2725DF, the ultrawide, but there's something about this one that's just better. Of course, it's faster. The color accuracy is better. Highly recommend, if you are in the market for one, definitely get one of these. So with that being said, you've bought yourself an AW2725DF and you're scratching your head in terms of all the settings and how to get the best out of your monitor. And it is quite confusing. After using the original ultrawide for about 18 months and now using this one for the past 3 months, I've formed my best opinion on which settings are the best. By no means these are to be taken as fact. Of course, there are going to be different use cases and different opinions where certain settings will probably be better, and we may have missed something. If you disagree with any of my settings, let's talk about it in the comments. We're all here to help each other to get the best out of these monitors. If there's anything here that I have missed, let me know. But I am hoping to cover every single detail, all the way from Windows settings to Nvidia and the in-panel interface settings themselves. So without further ado, let's head down and have a look at the settings. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is to go ahead and download the Dell Display Manager. This will allow you to control the monitor settings from within Windows, which is very useful, but more importantly, it will help you download and apply the latest firmware. So head over to this menu and make sure you've got the latest firmware downloaded. Also make sure that your monitor in question is the only monitor connected to the PC via USB. And it can sometimes be the case that some other USB devices may interfere with this update, so you may need to disconnect them before you go and do this. If it goes successfully, then you'll see this little notification that the update is being performed, and after a few moments, the update will be done. Next thing is the color management. Now this is where there may be some difference in opinions, but just let me go through what I recommend doing first. So head over to color management from your Windows, and you will see an ICC profile and an IC profile advanced color. Apply sRGB color profile to the normal one and make sure you apply the HDR True Black version for the advanced color. Now what happens is when you switch between HDR to normal modes, it's the advanced color that is used for the HDR mode. Now you can go and double check this by opening the Windows display, and you should see the color profile there matching the same as what you've just applied in the color management. If you use Alt Windows B to switch over to HDR now, the color profile should have updated to the HDR True Black as it shows here. So you just want to make sure these settings are applied correctly. Next, we're going to head into the Windows display settings and update the HDR settings here. Make sure use HDR, video streaming and auto HDR are selected to on, and you can use this little slider to update the SDR content brightness on your screen. You can test this by putting a HDR video next to it and you'll see that it only changes the SDR content brightness. I like to keep this at 35, but it's your personal preference. Just play some HDR videos and some SDR content to make sure you're happy with it. You can then head over to Windows and download the Windows HDR Calibration tool. Once the app is downloaded, it's fairly self-intuitive to use. Just follow the instructions and flow through the settings one by one to create a new color management profile that will apply to HDR. Now you can personalize this a little bit. For example, I have created a more saturated color profile. You will then have the chance to see the differences in terms of a before and after, because this will create a new management profile, as I said, and it will be applied in your color management. So go over to color management and just switch between these two new color profiles under advanced color whilst playing a HDR movie, so you know that you're happy with it. But make sure to remove the other one once you're happy with whichever one you are using. Now, a quick word on these. Some people don't like to keep any color management profiles and they just delete all of these because some applications don't get the color management profile applied. So it can create some weird effects sometimes. I like it like this. It's your personal preference. This is what I believe is the best for my use case. The next thing we're doing is going to make sure that the resolution and refresh rate in Windows is correctly selected, and also make sure the game mode is turned on. We're then going to head over to the Nvidia settings, and we just want to check that the manage 3D settings are set to default, because you may have played about with these settings before. We're only changing 3 things here. We want to make sure that low latency is set to max. We want to make sure that G-Sync compatible is on, and we want to make sure there is no power management applied, so it's always maxing out. Once you've done that, we then head over to make sure that resolution and refresh rate once again are correctly selected. I also recommend using Nvidia settings and using 10-bit color here, so you really max out some of the features of this monitor. Right, we're now going over to the Dell Display Manager settings, and we use sRGB for the most color accurate profile. And this will give you some extra settings when you do it on your monitor, so you have to do this one on the monitor. Make sure you select Gamma 2.2 and sRGB in the color profile. If it seems a little bit washed out, you can switch to standard, and then just make sure your brightness and your contrast are to 70. That's a personal preference. There's no other settings you need to play about with here. We're just going to switch over to HDR mode and make sure all the settings are good. You can't play about with brightness and contrast in HDR mode. You just want to make sure that you have HDR peak 1000 selected, because that is the best in terms of maxing the brightness of the monitor. And that's it. That's everything. As before, please make sure you comment if you don't agree with some of these settings. As always, like and subscribe. Catch you in the next one.